the hero. Choice. It's a powerful thing, and in the big wide world of consumable media, it's the difference between a movie and a video game. Outside of taking the time to view alternative endings, a film or TV series is one that you absorb rather than taking part in. Black Mirror's Bandersnatch managed to play with the concept of choose your own adventure, but outside of a few less intensive experiences, Werewolf Time being a personal favourite, and you won't know what that is unless you are Paul Anderson, an album or a Spotify playlist can be randomised, but each song remains the same as it was when it was recorded. You can change the taste of a product, but rare is the day that you could change its structure. However, in the early 80s, a boom of RPG product began flying from the shelves. Dungeons & Dragons started a wave of choose-your-own adventure experiences, allowing you to take the roles of people very different from you. A barbarian, a wizard. Who do you want to be today? Meanwhile, in 1982, Ian Livingstone and Steve Jackson began to import the aforementioned D&D products from TSR into the United Kingdom. From here came the Games Day events, which led to a chance meeting with a representative from Puffin Books, and from there came a series of meetings with one Geraldine Cook, the editor from Puffin. It was agreed that Jackson and Livingstone would write a series of how-to-play books, working through some different RPG systems. Jackson says, when it came to describing how to play RPGs, we came up with the idea of describing a game in action, and ultimately decided it would be best done by letting the reader make choices. The more we thought about it, the more we thought we really liked that idea. In fact, it was much more interesting than writing the RPG manual, so we abandoned the manual idea and put together what was to become the first game book. Cook and Puffin did not know how to react to the change in format, and were justifiably worried about the direction the pair had moved towards. After a silence that stretched several months, Puffin gave the project a green light, and work began on The Magic Quest, which soon became The Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Jackson and Livingstone split the duties between themselves, the only time they would ever do so. The pair have said multiple times now that the entire process was an utter nightmare, including playing pool to decide which of the combat systems each had developed as the backbone of the book was to be used. Who won has been lost to legend. Livingstone also rewrote the entire book close to the publication date after realizing that the writing style veered and changed throughout, and it was needed to be more consistent. Warlock of Firetop Mountain was released to the public and became a runaway success. It's interesting to note that this was also the time the computer games industry was entirely crashing. Warlock was released through the children's arm of Puffin Publishing, a fact that meant Geraldine Cook was not involved in the final product, which is something that Livingstone and Jackson laments. Cook did eventually gain some merit when Livingstone wrote Sorcery for the young adults line. Fighting fantasy game books follow a non-linear format. You start at the beginning and end at the end, but in between you could flit backwards and forwards through pages, picking choices at the conclusion of each passage, which could either take you to glory, turn to page 246, or spell certain doom. Your adventure ends here. Confrontation was also inevitable, and was decided by throwing dice to resolve combat with the many monsters, aliens, and other hostile creatures you faced throughout the 59 original books, these being published between 1982 and 1995. Around 15 million copies were sold during that period of time, a figure that creators Jackson and Livingstone could never have possibly expected when they pitched the concept to the publishers. Fighting fantasy remained a mainstay for many years to come, bringing in guest writers and other authors to keep up with the demand. Jackson remembers that after Warlock, they had roughly 6 weeks to write and design the sequel. Puffin was somewhat worried about a few of the experiences held within the books, including vast amounts of gore and violence. You look down to see the spear entangled in your own intestines, as well as one case of nudity that was horridly retouched, not to mention the campaigns that Warlock brought about from the Anti-Devil Brigade. Warlock has recently been adapted to Android and iOS and opened up a vast new audience. The knock-on effect from the day brought a huge audience of UK-based RPGers to the big-name brands like D&D, and experienced a resurgence in the late 90s, and again over the last few years.